All right, we're going to chant Ohe Vaishnava Thakura. Ohe Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagar, Veda say, Karuna Gori. Ohe Vaishnava Thakura, Doyara Sagar, Veda say, Karuna Gori. Dia pada Jaya, Shodo e Maya, Tomara Charana. Dia pada Jaya, Shodo e Maya, Tomara Jaya Dharma, Jaya Dosha Jodi, Jaya Guna, Deyoda say. Jaya Dharma, Jaya Dosha Jodi, Jaya Guna, Deyoda say. Jaya Satsanga, Deyo Yamare, Ossechi Sangerashe. Jaya Satsanga, Deyo Yamare, Ossechi Sangerashe. Ekaki Amara, Nami Bodo, Ainam Sankirtane. Ekaki Amara, Nami Bodo, Ainam Kripakari, Shadavindudiya, Deha Krishna, Namadane. Tumi Kripakari, Shadavindudiya, Deha Krishna. Krishna say Tomara, Krishna Dike Paro, Tomara Chikatya Jay. Krishna say Tomara, Krishna Dike Paro, Tomara Chikatya Jay. Amito Gandala, Krishna Krishna Bole, Daitava Pache Pache. Amito Gandala, Krishna Krishna Bole, Daitava Pache. Nava Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paravitakacharya, also Teta Sajashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Navacharya, Srila Hoidas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Gopinath Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Madhuranam Ki Jai, Jagannath Swami Ki Jai, Yamunavai Ki Jai, Shrimati Glasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Putale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jinamani Namaste, Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharni, Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatani. So let me read the translation. O Venerable Vaishnava, O Ocean of Mercy, be merciful unto your servant. Give me the shade of your lotus feet and purify me. I hold on to your lotus feet. Teach me to control my 6 passions, rectify my 6 faults. Bestow upon me the 6 qualities and offer unto me the 6 kinds of holy association. I do not find the strength to carry on alone the Sankirtan of the holy name of the Hari. Please bless me by giving me just 1 drop of faith with which to obtain the great treasure of the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is yours. You have the power to give him to me. I'm simply running behind you shouting, Krishna, Krishna. Okay, so Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. And now we'll go to the Jaiva Dharma, where we're reading a very interesting story about the nature of the soul. So, Om Gana Timiranda Shah Garanjana Shlakya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So let's share the screen. And here we are with screen sharing. Okay, just give me 1 second to get this set up. So there we go. Okay, let us roll. So we're starting here in the 2nd paragraph on this page. So this is about the nature of the jiva. If one heats impure gold and beats it, one obtains pure gold. In other words, you burn off all the impurities. Similarly, when the jiva is contaminated with an aversion to Krishna, that means he doesn't want Krishna, and enjoys Maya, is beaten in the arena of the material world and becomes purified. Oh my God. Thus the suffering of the averse jiva ultimately gives happiness and is an arrangement of mercy. Wow. So our suffering in this world is an arrangement of mercy, although it doesn't always seem like that. But in the long term, yeah. Short term, woo, it's suffering. The far-sighted person sees that the suffering of the jiva in Krishna's pastimes produces auspiciousness. The short-sighted person sees only suffering. Short-sighted means you're only seeing the present. which is like the typical example I always use, just like when I had my kidney stone. It was suffering, and some may say you're suffering, but actually it was Krishna. Krishna sent the kidney stone. Brajanath said, even if the suffering of the jiva in a state of bondage finally produces auspiciousness, in the present state it gives great suffering. Why does Krishna not arrange for some other path without giving suffering, since he is full of all shaktis? In other words, Krishna could arrange it, but he doesn't, because there's no other way we're going to learn. Babaji said, Krishna's pastimes are of many types and variegated. There's one type of variegated pastime. This is one type. When the independent Lord performs all types of pastimes, why can this type of pastime not take place? If the Lord has all types of variety, no type of pastime should be rejected. Even if he performs pastimes of other types, the participants must accept some type of difficulty if it arises. Krishna is the Lord and doer. All the participants are dependent on his will and are objects of the actions of the Lord, who is the doer. If one is dependent on the doer's desire, it is only natural to receive some sort of difficulty. If that difficulty finally gives happiness, it is not a difficulty. Why would you call it suffering? Another point is, okay, that seems to be, why is Krishna doing this to us? But the point is, the suffering is illusion, just like the enjoyment is an illusion. It doesn't seem like an illusion to us right now, but it is an illusion because it's our identification with something that we're not. I always use the example of the car. If something happens to my car, then it causes suffering. If something happens to your car, then it's simply interesting. Something to be studied, something to be understood, but quite interesting. Not that I should be interested in your suffering. So, because of our attachment to a particular object, then we suffer. It seems so cruel, but life is cruel. The suffering the jiva undergoes in order to nourish Krishna's pastimes is full of happiness. The jiva, with his independent desire, rejecting the joyful portion of Krishna's pastimes, accepts suffering generated by absorption in Maya. If there is some fault in this, it is the jiva's fault. Krishna has no fault at all. But just really unpacking this, Krishna knows what you need, and it all works out as part of Krishna's pastime sometimes. Brajanath said, what is the harm if Krishna does not give the jiva independent desire? Krishna is omniscient. He knows that if he gives the jiva independence, the jiva will suffer. Is Krishna not responsible for the suffering of the jiva? In other words, why doesn't Krishna produce us? Of course, we've never been produced, so that we don't have free will. Oh my God. We mentioned this yesterday. Then we would be robots. So if Krishna took away our free will, which he can do anything he wants, then we would be just like little animatronics, robots, something like you see in Disney World, or we just saw yesterday on the internet. Babaji said, independence is a special gem. The Lord does not give this jewel to any object in the material world. Thus, these material objects are insignificant and despicable. If the jiva had not been given independence, the jiva would be insignificant and despicable like material objects. In other words, if you raise the question, why did Krishna give us independence? Why doesn't he take away the independence? Then we wouldn't be us. We'd be a material object. You'd be like a computer or a robot. Especially the jiva is a conscious part. Another point is that we're part and parcel of Krishna. So we have the same nature as Krishna. So same nature as Krishna. However, the material world doesn't have the same nature as Krishna. It's a separated energy of the Lord. Especially the jiva is a conscious particle. The jiva should obtain whatever quality exists in a conscious object. Independence is one quality endowed to conscious objects. In other words, all conscious objects have independence. And if they didn't have independence, they wouldn't be conscious. Somewhat. Maybe limited independence, even the little insects, they have some sort of independence. One cannot separate an object from its eternal quality. That's a quality of the jiva. Thus the jiva, which is a small particle, must have a quality of independence to that small degree. The jiva endowed with the quality of independence is superior to the material world and the master of the material world. Quality of independence is the dear servant of Krishna. That's a, give it a second before we become stable. When the jiva misuses this independence, it becomes absorbed in maya. Merciful Krishna, seeing the misfortune of the jiva, cries and pursues the jiva in order to rescue him. In other words, that is an interesting statement. Krishna is crying because of what we're doing to ourselves. That is love. That is compassion. That is empathy. He's not crying because, we're not able to do something for him, because Krishna is independent. Seeing the jiva cannot obtain the sweet pastimes of the Lord in the material world, Krishna mercifully manifests his inconceivable pastimes in this material world. Seeing that the jiva cannot understand the nature of his pastimes in the conditioned state, the Lord has appeared in Navadvip and, as a guru, has explained the supreme method incarnate, which is his name as well as his form, qualities, and pastimes. And he teaches by acting as a devotee of the Lord. Of course, that's Lord Chaitanya. How can you attribute any type of fault to Krishna, so merciful in the way? His mercy is unfathomable, but your condition, lamentable. Mercy does not affect us to difficulty without any reason. Rajanath said, so then is Maya Shakti, my misfortune, an enemy? If Krishna is full of Shakti, all Shaktis and omniscient, would remove Maya, the jiva would not suffer. Here's another doubt people have. If Krishna is so powerful, why doesn't he just remove Maya? And we're going to hear why that can't happen. And also, it's our desire. If you remove Maya, then what are you going to do if you don't want to serve Krishna? You just merge into the Brahmajyoti or something like that. Babaji said, Maya is the shadow of the Swarup Shakti, that means the spiritual potency of the Lord. Thus, it is a transformation of the pure Shakti. It is the furnace for purifying unsuitable jivas for making them suitable. It's like a prison. Durga means the prison warden, as Srila Prabhupada described her. Maya is Krishna's servant. She punishes the jivas who are averse to Krishna, and curing them makes them pure. In other words, the reason for the suffering is to purify us, not to make us suffer. And we've talked about this many times before. There is retributive justice and restorative justice. Retributive justice means just to make someone suffer. Just like sometimes you may feel that if someone causes you or stimulates some pain in you, you may feel, oh, I wish that person would suffer. And then when something happens to them, you go, joy, I'm happy they suffered. Or you may even, if you're really far out, you may curse them to suffer. But Krishna is not like that. Maya is not like that. She doesn't want us to suffer. She is giving us lessons so that we will ultimately not suffer. Forgetting, and actually we're not suffering anyway, as I mentioned before, because the suffering is due to attachment. So she's trying to relieve us from the attachment. Okay? Just like, for example, here's the story Prabhupada told many times. I think I might have told it, and I know I told it. Just like King Indra one time was cursed to become a pig. For those of you who don't know where the pig is, it's a hog. Stool eater. So he was there down in the pigsty, pig pen, and he was with his pig associates, and they wanted him to come back to the heavenly planets because his term of punishment was over. And so they went down, okay, please come back, my dear Indra. And he said, no, 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 I got so many responsibilities. So they had to subject him to some really painful situation. What's the painful situation? That all your pig family is slaughtered by the farmer. And so he thought, well, better get back now. But he was suffering. And that suffering was actually to bring him to his, at least material, constitutional position, which is being Indra. His responsibility. So this sometimes is required, you just see the face of this material energy. Oh my God. I mean, just like, and again, the kidney stones, when I had it just made me very serious about Krishna consciousness. All right, we go very serious. Forgetting that one is a servant of Krishna is improper and a fault for the jiva, whose swarup is a conscious particle. When the jiva is spoiled by this fault, it is punished by the witch of Maya. Now, in reality, Maya, or Durga, is not a witch. She's a pure devotee of the Lord. But for us, she may act like that to teach us a lesson. The material world is a prison for the punishable jiva. Just as the king, being merciful to the citizens, makes a prison, Krishna is showing unparalleled, that means mercy that cannot be equaled, mercy to such jiva makes the prison of the material world and makes Maya the prison warden. There's the example that Prabhupada used. It's right from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. You thought, well, okay. Rajna said, if the material world is a prison, what are its chains? It's something to keep us there. Babaji said Maya has 3 types of chains. Akriti is also called ropes, gunas, made of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Maya, sattva, rajas, and tamas are the 3 modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Like some of us become attracted to things in the mode of goodness. You like a beautiful sunset, or mountain, or snow-covered mountain. Not too much snow, of course. That's goodness. Oh, it's so good, fresh air. I mean, I like fresh air too, but you become enamored by these things. So rajas means I want more and more and more and more and more. The more I get, the more I want. And tamas means, listen, let me just forget about everything. Take shelter of sleep. When I sleep, I feel so comfortable I can forget about all the miseries I have in this world. Maya appropriately binds all the punishable jivas with these 3 chains. Although the jiva is sattvika, rajasika, or tamasica, whether the jiva is, all jivas are bound. Though there may be different metals, gold chains, silver chains, and iron chains, they're all chains and not good things. I mean, for example, you're chained up. You may have gold chains. It's interesting, some people wear gold chains around their neck. Not to tie themselves up, but to decorate this body. Prajna said, how can the jiva, which is small consciousness, a conscious particle, be bound by Maya's chains. Babaji said, things made of Maya cannot touch a conscious object as soon as the jiva. In other words, Maya or illusion or things of Maya cannot actually touch the soul. So why are we in Maya? Here Babaji is going to explain. As soon as the jiva thinks it is enjoyer of Maya, it is covered by a subtle body with the material ahankara as a covering. So in other words, the subtle body is the intermediate or the intermediate medium. The medium through which we experience illusion. Just like the wire is the medium through which we experience electricity. We're not there directly in the powerhouse, but we experience electricity at the end of the cable. So that's a medium. So the subtle body is the sort of like the wire in between the gross body and the soul. And that's the subtle body is mind intelligence and false ego. The 2 feet of the jiva with just subtle body accept the chains of Maya. The jivas with sattvika, mode of goodness, false ego, ahankara, become devatas, demigods. Would that be nice? No. Their feet are bound with golden or sattika chains. The rajasika jivas have a mixture of devatas and human natures. Their feet are bound by silver or rajasika chains. In other words, sometimes, let's say, on this world, most of the people I know are rajasika. They want more and more, but they have some sense of morality or ethics or goodness at the same time. Tamasika jivas are intoxicated with the bliss of material enjoyment in the form of meat, fish, liquor, sex, and money. Their feet are bound with the iron chains of tamas. So in other words, our interest in these things, meat and fish, liquor and sex and money. It's like I knew someone, I'm not going to mention the name, who would like money so much he would hide it in his mattress, and just to experience some happiness he would touch it. Their feet are bound with the iron chains of tamas, ignorance. The jivas bound by chains cannot leave the prison. They are subject to many types of suffering. And Brajanath says, what type of activities do the jivas bound in prison do? First, Babaji said, first the jiva, according to the desire to enjoy material objects, does actions suitable to attain the result desired. In other words, everything has a purpose. Then, bound by chains, many types of suffering arise. The jiva tries to prevent suffering. That's the impetus in this world, to prevent or alleviate or stop suffering. Brajanath said, of these 2 types of activity, please describe in more detail the first type. Babaji said, the gross covering is the material body. It has 6 conditions. So, material body means Pancha Mahabhuta, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. That's the gross body, material body. It has 6 conditions: birth, maintenance, growth, producing offspring, decreasing, and destruction. This is pretty easy to understand. A living entity comes into being, he's born, either through eggs, or from the womb, or some fermentation, or some other means like that. And then, actually it's a little bit reversed. Then there should be like growth. Then there's maintenance. Sorry, I think got 2 of them reversed here. Then there's byproducts, little tiny cute little byproducts. And then after a while, one starts to lose their energy, decreases, and then ultimately there's death. The jiva experiences lack in the form of hunger, thirst, pain also, pushed by the desire to enjoy. The jiva, and also the sex desire, the jiva situated in the material body is controlled by eating, sleeping, sex, etc. like eating, sleeping, mating, depending, okay? He performs many kamya karmas to enjoy objects. Karma means work or activity, and kamya means desire. So he wants so many things, so he performs activities to get what he wants. He works hard at a job, whatever. He does 10 types of karmas from birth to burning on the pyre, samskaras. These are the samskaras are the different things that happen during different times of life. So there's the birth samskara, then there's the name samskara, and finally there's antyeshti, which means the final samskara, which is death, funeral. Okay, actually it's not death, it's the funeral. Actually, the first samskara is the Garbhadan samskara. That's the implantation of the semen in the womb of the lady. He performs 18 types of inferior sacrifices described in the Vedas. These are material sacrifices, desiring heavenly enjoyment in Swarga. After accruing punyas means pious activities, on karma marg means the path of work in the gross body. Returning to earth, he is born in a Brahmin family and desires to attain all types of happiness. Taking shelter of a dharma, the bound jiva enjoys his senses by sinful acts. Now this is really interesting. First he's pious, but because he becomes entangled in sense enjoyment, he eventually succumbs to impious or sinful activities. Krishna explains in the Gita that the modes of nature are a continual flux, a continual struggle for supremacy. Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating ignorance and passion. Sometimes passion becomes prominent, defeating goodness and ignorance, etc. By acts of dharma mentioned first, the jiva attains swarga, that means higher heavenly planets, or other higher planets, and then after enjoying there, returns to earth. By sinful actions mentioned later, the jiva enters many types of hells, and after that experience returns to the human body. Moving in the wheel of karma in this way, the jiva bound by maya day and night from beginningless time wanders trying to taste material enjoyment. The jiva experiences momentary happiness as a result of punya karmas, means pious activities in the mode of goodness, and experiences momentary suffering as a result of sinful acts. So let's say you do a lot of these punya karmas, pious activities, and you build up your good karma bank account. You really have a lot, and then you start to enjoy, and when you're enjoying, you're getting rid of the good karma. Gradually dissipates, goes down, 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 and then you're left with nothing, and then you do sinful activities. Brajanath said, please describe the second type of activity clearly. So the jiva in the body, afflicted by many lacks in the gross body, performs many actions to extinguish these problems. In other words, we are feeling all these different impulses and problems. Actually, all enjoyment in this world is due to an imbalance. For example, the enjoyment we get from eating is due to the fact that we are hungry. And the enjoyment we get anyway from drinking is because we're thirsty. Otherwise, it's not enjoyable. Just to eat without being hungry is not enjoyable. So hunger is not such a pleasant sensation. Although people want to become more and more hungry to be able to enjoy the meal. So that's why they don't want to eat between meals, because if you eat between meals, you're spoiling your appetite. Just like when I was young, my mother would say to me, don't eat between meals because you will spoil your appetite. To remove hunger and thirst, he attempts to gather goods for eating and drinking. In other words, big endeavor. In order to easily obtain these goods, he earns money by great effort. So many hours a day. To remove cold, he gathers clothing. To remove the thirst for the happiness of the senses, he engages in action like marriage. Then he has to work harder. To remove lacks of family and increase their happiness, he labors hard. When its gross body is attacked by sickness, to remove the sickness, he uses medicines. To protect his goods, he engages in legal battles in court. Controlled by lust, anger, greed, illusion, intoxication, and envy, he engages in sinful acts such as fights, arguments, violence, afflicting others, stealing, cruelty, and useless pride. He builds a house to live according to his desires. These are activities to remove lacks. Lacks in this case means something you need, some need. I mean, everybody needs to breathe and eat and sleep. So you have all these activities. You never sleeping. You got to get in bed. You got to make sure the bed has a nice mattress. And for eating, you got to have all these different kitchen utensils. Just like even in my kitchen, in the kitchen of a sannyas, I have all these utensils. I have pressure cookers. I have a stove. I have a refrigerator. I have an air fryer. I have so many pots. So many utensils. So much grain and stuff stored up. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's a little expensive. So Prajna said, how do I get all these things? Well, fortunately, I have disciples. They get me these things. But not everybody has disciples. So if Maya, Prajna said, if Maya only covered the jiva with a subtle body, would not Maya's goal be achieved? In other words, what's the need of the gross body? Just give the subtle body to the jiva soul. Babaji said, no, the jiva cannot act with only the subtle body. For this reason, the gross body is necessary. As a result of the actions of the gross body, desires are produced in the subtle body. By these desires, one obtains a suitable gross body again. In other words, without a gross body, there's no fulfillment of one's desires. That's why if one becomes a ghost, you will have, or one will have, the same desires we all have, but there's no cessation or satiation. That's why you see all these ghosts. They hang around places of intoxication. Why do they hang around places of intoxication? So when there are people taking intoxication, it opens them up to be ghostly haunted. And when someone is ghostly haunted, the ghost comes into the body and enjoys through your senses. Oh my God. The ghost is enjoying through my senses. Don't blame me, it's a ghost. Prajna said, how are karma and its results linked? The karma mimamsakas say that the giver of results, the Lord, is imaginary. One tattva called apurva manifests when an action is performed. This apurva gives results for actions performed. Is this true? So in other words, apurva, in this particular context, this is not our philosophy, is considered to be the mechanism that, or the process by which you get results from actions. It's apurva. Well, actually, apurva means without. Let's give the exact definition of this. That'd be interesting to find out exact. Let me just do a little research. I think that's important to figure it out. So we have the exact definition as Prabhupada gave it to us. All right, give me a second. Hold on a second, we will get to the exact. Whoops. Oh, okay. It's the resultant actions of karma are called apurva, Prabhupada said. Hold on a second. The resultant actions of karma. Also means, in certain cases, means unprecedented. Interesting. Unprecedented. This is what I'm writing. Unprecedented. Also means this wonder. Wow, has also different definitions according to context. Wow. Unprecedented. Anyway, let's just take this as the resultant actions or reactions of karma. Okay. Hold on a second. You can go back to this text that we are reading. Okay. So, Babaji answers, karma mimamsakas. That's the karma mimamsa philosophy. They don't accept God. They say that everyone is under the control of karma. Karma is supreme. And Babaji says, karma mimamsakas do not understand the conclusion of Vedic knowledge. Seen in a cursory manner, the nature of karma is such a sacrifice, they make this conclusion. Actually, they do not accept the conclusion of the Vedas. The conclusion of the Vedas, of course, is Krishna's God, but one should worship Krishna. The Vedas say, Dvasuparna sayuja sakaya samanam vriksha parisashvachate tayoranya pipalam swajachanashnan anyuvichakashite. On the Ashvata tree of samsara, there are two birds. One is the bound jiva and the other is its friend, the Lord. The bound jiva tastes the fruit of the tree and the Lord does not taste the fruit, but observes the other bird as it tastes. In other words, that's what I showed the Svata Upanishad. In our heart there's there are two souls. There's the super soul, is Krishna watching us, and there's us who are trying to, who is trying to enjoy this material world. The conclusion is that the jiva bound by Maya performs actions and experiences the results of its action. The Lord, the controller of Maya, gives the jiva the results according to his actions. As long as the jiva does not recognize the Lord continues this pastime with the jiva. Where's the mimamsakas apurva? In this, atheistic conclusions are not at all attractive. In other words, the apurva has really no cause. It's a tattva. They say it's a tattva, which is ridiculous. Unprecedented. In other words, unprecedented would mean unprecedented would mean it's one of the tattvas. Tattva means, of course, something that exists eternally. It's not. It's not. Because the reactions that you get for particular activities is dependent on Krishna watching you. And of course, Yamaraj and his associates give you the reactions, and Maya. Brajana said, why is karma said to be without a beginning? Interesting. Babaji said, the root of all karma is the desire to perform actions. The root of the desire to perform action is ignorance of vidya. Avidya means forgetting that one is the servant of Krishna. That ignorance does not start within the material time. In other words, you don't have karma outside of the material world, but you can forget. That's our free will. That means originally we knew we were a servant of Krishna. Wow. The jiva's root of karma, avidya, arises at the junction in tatashta, the junction between the material world and spiritual world. Therefore, there's no beginning to karma in terms of material time. Thus, karma is without beginning. How could there be, you understand, how could there be a beginning of karma in material time when actually the material avidya, or forgetting that one's a servant of Krishna, happens outside of material time, and that's the actual beginning of karma, though it's not karma, it's the instigating cause of the karma. Brajanath said, is Maya different from ignorance? And the Babaji answers, Maya is Krishna's Shakti, energy. By this Shakti, he has created the material universe, by his energy, with the intention of purifying the averse jivas, that means us who are against Krishna. He has put Maya Shakti into action. Maya has two functions, ignorance and pradhana. So pradhana is the ingredient cause of the material world. And ignorance is puts you in ignorance. Ignorance functions in relation to the jivas. Okay, that's really understandable. Pradhana is in relation to matter. So pradhana is the unmanifest state. It's like how to better explain it? It's like a lump of clay. So the prakriti, from pradhana, prakriti arises the material world. So from this ingredient cause, from ignorance arises the jiva's desire for material actions. So ignorance is essential. Not essential, but essential to be in the material world. Maya has two divisions, knowledge, vidya, and ignorance, avidya, both in relation to the jiva. By the function of ignorance, the jiva becomes bound up. Ignorance means we're ignoring something. It's not that we're just like dull, we're ignoring something deliberately. By the function of knowledge, the jiva attains liberation. When the punishable jiva becomes favorable to Krishna, knowledge starts to function. In other words, tadami buddhi yogam tam jnanam upayantite. So if you're favorable to Krishna, Krishna in your heart starts to give you knowledge. As long as the jiva forgets Krishna, ignorance functions. Krishna also gives you forgetfulness. Brahma jnana, that means spiritual knowledge, is the special action of the knowledge function. The first portion of discrimination is auspicious action by the jiva. In other words, the first application of knowledge, which is called vigyan, is the discrimination between matter and spirit. The last portion of discrimination is the attainment of good knowledge by the jiva. Ignorance is a covering on the jiva, and knowledge is removing the covering on the jiva. So in other words, Maya has both of these aspects. Okay, pretty technical today. Trying to keep it interesting to everyone. All right, so let's stop sharing, and then we will allow you all to take some questions. Let me unmute or allow you to unmute yourselves. You can raise your hand, you can unmute yourself, or you can, what else can you do? Type in the chat window. So Gopal Das, you have a question. You can unmute yourself.
Please accept my obeisance, Srila Gurudev.
Okay.
You were talking about that we have some bad feeling about someone, and then we may think, oh, I hope they suffer. And then we see them suffer and we're glad. Or sometimes we may even curse them. But also the modes of nature are always in flux. So sometimes by happenstance or impulse or reflex, we may curse someone or wish something bad upon them. And then later on we calm down and perhaps a little mode of goodness creeps in, and then we see that they do suffer, and then we feel guilty about it. So how is it we don't see in the Bhagavatam or in other places that, sages may curse and then they feel bad about it? They can't take it back. So why aren't we able to take it back when we wish someone ill?
So when the sages curse, first of all, when the sages curse, it's actually for the person's benefit. Just like when Narada Muni cursed Manigriva Nalagubara, It was for their benefit, so that ultimately they get purified and see Krishna. So it seems to be part of the process of cursing that you can't withdraw curses.
Huh.
As this, it's part of the mechanism of cursing. So be careful when you curse. Of course, if you're not really potent enough to curse, you know what happens to your curse. It comes back and gets you, bites you back. So therefore, a devotee generally doesn't curse, although in extreme circumstances, for the person's benefit, and only for the person's benefit, not as retribution, because retribution is done under the mode of ignorance and passion. You want to see someone suffer. You feel good. It justifies you to see someone suffer. That you were right. Say, I was right all along. We have this feeling when someone suffers, you say, I told you so. It's sort of like an enjoyment we get. I told you so. I warned you. How could you mess with me? So many different. I'm important, in other words. So otherwise, with the great sages like Narada Muni said, done out of complete compassion. Yes, there was anger there, but that anger is controlled anger. Sometimes, just like a kshatriya, a bona fide kshatriya, he uses anger, but it's controlled, it's focused, just like Arjuna when he was firing arrows. He focused his arrows on the enemy. It wasn't just like lashing out in all directions. Like uncontrolled anger is just like you just lash out in all directions, and you even subject someone to your anger who didn't have anything to do with precipitating your anger. Just like sometimes someone will make you angry. Won't make you angry. It'll stimulate your anger. And then you'll come home and you'll say to your friend or your wife or whoever, don't talk to me, I'm angry. And you'll take it out on them. That happens quite often. So
from where does this guilt come from?
Where does the guilt come from? It comes from recognition. That's the knowledge that I blew it. I didn't control my senses. Guilt is good. I mean, not that one should be overcome with guilt, but to feel guilty, yeah, and to be vulnerable enough to express it, which is actually very important. Not that just one keeps it inside. You express, I feel guilty. It's a sign of admitting you made a mistake. But if you don't admit it and you just take it internally, it may actually destroy you. Okay. We got a question from Abhay Chaitanya.
Hare Krishna Gurudev.
Hello.
Haribol Gurudev. Dandavat Pranam to you. Gurudev, we're talking a lot about the suffering of the soul. And as we know, part of the reason why the soul suffers is because we have forgotten our connection or forgotten Krishna.
Yeah.
And so, as we know from the story of, Maharaj Bharat, in his next life, when he remembered that he was, he remembered he had the benefit of remembering his previous life and all that. Then we saw as in, when he came back as Jad Bharat, he was completely renounced and didn't want to get involved in material affairs at all. So why wouldn't Krishna allow us just a little bit of remembrance so that we can, all reform ourselves really, really quickly?
You want to remember? You want to remember your past lives. Well, actually,
yeah.
Actually, we do remember our past lives, and our subconscious, and that's really all that's required. Like the subtle body takes the conceptions or a remembrance of our last gross body and transfers it to the new gross body. So we do remember in a way that's appropriate and helpful to us. And if we were to remember everything in a conscious way rather than subconscious way, we would be overwhelmed. Like if you remembered your past birth or several past births or all your past births in a conscious way, it would be too much. you would actually become crazy. Even in this lifetime, if you remembered everything very clearly, there's some people who are like that. They never forget anything and they just like go crazy. They remember everything that happened in this lifetime and it's just like overwhelming. So Krishna arranges that we remember what is useful, and the remembrance is imprinted in the subtle body, not necessarily that one has to manifest it uh, consciously. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense, Gurudev. Yeah.
Like my subtle body or the wiring in my brain remembers how I learned how to walk.
Yeah.
But I don't consciously remember how I learned to walk. Because if I was consciously remembering, it would be kind of traumatic thinking about all the times I fell on my face. When I was a kid, every kid who's learning to walk, keeps falling down, crying, and everything like that. Imagine if I would remember every time I fell down on my face and was crying. Not necessary. It's just the imprint of that experience is at least in the brain or in the nervous system, and therefore it's subconscious, and therefore we're working according to that imprint that we created. I mean, how did I learn how to talk? How did I learn how to do this or that? I don't remember any of those things. Not necessary.
Yeah.
If it was necessary, like in the case of Bharat Maharaj, then Krishna would allow us to remember it.
Yeah. I guess what I was saying was, even in Lord Indra's story, when he became the pig, if he remembered, he would have come out of that. You would have thought, right? He would have come out of that.
No, he remembered that he was Indra in that case.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah. He remembered he was Indra.
And he still didn't want to come out.
That's right.
That is incredible. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely remembered he was Indra. There was no problem about that. But he became so attached. Just like we can remember, even consciously, we're spirit soul, yet we engage in so many things. Now, I see this on Facebook with so many devotees. They can preach, they understand the philosophy, Bhakti Shastri they have, and look at their Facebook. Not that I spend all day long looking at Facebook. It's just like, what? Was that the same person who was giving Bhagavatam class the other day? I mean, and he was talking so much about Maya and the illusory entity, and there he is at a disco. The interesting thing, people are not embarrassed by what they put up in Facebook, and they don't understand. Their guru may be looking at it. They make you would think that you would think that if you actually allow your guru to be your friend on Facebook, that you would actually take some care, understanding that he might see it in his news feed. But people just aren't embarrassed. I'm just thinking, oh my God, they should be aware. I'm watching, but people should be aware that Krishna's watching too.
Yeah.
It's actually quite funny if you think about it. They know the philosophy. They can recite so many Sanskrit verses. They know, subconsciously the gurus may be watching what the person's doing, and they're acting like Indra the pig. Anyway, so that's
a good example.
So it's time.
Yep. Thank you, Gurudev.
Anyway, thank you. It's time to end. Sorry we can't take any more questions. It's